What's going on, guys? My name is PJ, and on my channel I talk about different ways that we can connect to our true self. One of the best ways that I have found in my own personal journey of connecting to my true self has been the Enneagram. I honestly haven't really found any tool that in and of itself is this powerful to help us really understand what that true self is and connect to it more and more on a daily basis. So today I have a set of questions for us, no matter what type we are, to ask ourselves. I'm going to go type by type and I'm going to bring up 5 questions. Well, I should have taken the 10, but 5 questions that it would benefit each type to ask themselves. The Enneagram itself is a tool that helps us bring more self-awareness into our life by providing us with a map that then we can use to observe ourselves as we go throughout our day. The Enneagram gives us this tool where it says, hey, these are the patterns that as your type you tend to play out. And as you learn to observe those patterns more and more in action, you learn to kind of disidentify with them and not see yourself as your type, but be able to utilize your type as, your higher self in a sense, and use your type, use your personality for a greater good, for a greater cause. So in a sense, your spirit can be channeled through your type and come into this world, but basically the will that you're serving is a higher will. At least that's how I would like to use the Enneagram. I would like to use the Enneagram as a tool that helps the voice of my ego become quieter and quieter and quieter so that my spirit can become louder and louder and louder. But the ego doesn't disappear, it's that just my spirit begins to use it for a greater good, greater cause. So today, the video that I'm shooting today was highly inspired by one of my personal favorite Enneagram books, and it is this book right here. It's called The Wisdom of the Enneagram. Bring this right here. The Wisdom of the Enneagram. It is by Don Richard Risso and Russ Hudson. So Russ Hudson is actually one of my personal favorite Enneagram teachers, and I've talked about another program of his that is pretty new. It came out in January of 2021, and that program is called the Enneagram 9 Pathways or 9 Gateways to Presence. And that program is phenomenal. It deepened my understanding of the Enneagram so much. And obviously that book that I just showed you is the fundamentals of the Enneagram as Don Risso and Russ Hudson taught it many years ago. I think that book came out in 1998 or something like that. So the ideas or the 5 questions for each type that I'm going to propose to you were highly inspired by what I learned about the types from that book. Obviously, every Enneagram book has the type descriptions, but I really felt like the descriptions in this book, not to knock any other book, are more deep when it comes to the spiritual content, so to speak. It goes way beyond just the personality. It goes a lot deeper into essence, as they would call it. So the questions were inspired by that book, so I just wanted to give credit where credit is due. But those questions are not in the book, so it's just based on type descriptions and what I learned from their descriptions. So without further ado, let's jump in and discuss type 1's 5 questions to ask themselves. Okay, so I'm going to read these from my phone because I want to make sure I get them right. And little preface too is that these questions are just serving you to help expand your self-awareness practice. So these questions, the reason I wanted to share them with you is to help you bring even more awareness to yourself, your patterns, your habits, by helping you stop and pause and reflect on these questions. And Tony Robbins always says that the quality of our life is based on the quality of the questions that we ask ourselves. So hopefully these questions help boost your quality of life as you begin asking yourself more and more on a daily basis. So the first question for type 1s: have you been so strict with others and with enforcing your standards that you now subtly fear that others will hold you mercilessly accountable for your errors. So basically, this is talking about how type 1s have such a high ideal and standard, and oftentimes they become the examples for the rest of us to just see the ideal, to like they embody it, right? So it gives an example for the rest of us to follow. However, because of this super high standard that they not only enforce on themselves mercilessly, they also tend to sometimes at lower levels of health also enforce that high level standard on others in the same merciless kind of fashion. So what ends up happening is that sometimes, maybe subtly, they start fearing that others will hold them accountable to the same standards, but even more mercilessly, because others have been kind of fed up by the type 1's, super challenging ways and holding them to such high standards. So that is a subtle fear that may come up in type 1s, and it would benefit type 1s, if you're type 1 listening to this, if you check in with yourself, and checking in with yourself would benefit any type, but type 1s especially, and particularly as it relates to this question, if you check in with yourself and just pay attention to how, ask yourself, how am I really treating people? Am I treating people in a compassionate way, like enforcing my standards in a compassionate way? Or am I just very militant and very rough with them and mean with them? And subtly, I'm starting to fear that they may be that same way and worse towards me. And living in fear, even if it's a subtle fear that is out of our awareness, is no good way to live. So that was the first question, and it was the first one because I feel like it would be the most beneficial to ask themselves. So second question, are you letting others help you at all? So this is something that obviously plays a part for a lot of types, but not to go even more in depth into it, but a lot of us, especially if you're type 1, I have a type 1 wing because I'm a 9 wing 1, and I get this, and I know as a type 1 listening to this, you struggle with this even more, so ask yourself, are you wearing yourself out just because you're not letting others help you? And oftentimes others would be very happy to help you, but it's just that you haven't asked. Question number 3. Are you letting others know at all what you need? So this is kind of similar to the last question, but again, asking for help, asking for your needs. Those are things that would be beneficial if, as a type 1, you begin to, seek out and ask for. So that is the third question. Fourth question, are you using self-improvement as a denial of yourself as you are? So this is so powerful, and I personally fall into this trap, or I would like to think that I don't fall into it as much as I used to, but I 100% used to fall into this trap a lot earlier, especially when I was less self-aware. The trap here is, I was obsessed and am and love self-help. I love self-improvement. My favorite video games back when I was a big-time gamer were video games that the character could become better and better and improve. And as I got older, I was like, why not be the character of my own video game, the character of my own life, the main character of my own life. And so I started getting really into self-improvement, but I realized how this constant desire for self-improvement and seeking to be better and better and better, although it's a good thing, the place that it's coming from within ourselves, if that place is not good, then the whole tree, so to speak, is bad. It's kind of like the saying by Jesus that you can judge a tree by its fruits. It's like, if the fruits that may come from that place of like, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy as I am. I'm not worthy of love, I'm not worthy of acceptance, I'm not good, until or unless I improve and become better. Well, the fruits that are going to come from that are going to be tied to a bad tree, so they're going to also be bad as well. Even though on the surface they may look good, they may actually perpetuate a sense of emptiness. I personally experienced this kind of with working out, back in like 2015, 2016. I was really into working out, but I realized as I got more quote unquote fit, I started feeling more insecure rather than less, because my whole reason for working out was based on this premise that I'm not good as I am, and that I need to work out to become good, and worthy. And so I think, the main thing that this question is pointing us to is that self improvement is great, but the place that you're coming from in that journey of self improvement within yourself, that's even more important. It's the balance of, I was just listening to a great audiobook. It's called The Yin and Yang of Self Compassion. It's by let me look it up right now. It's by a lady named Kristen Neff. So this book, or this audiobook that I was listening to, was talking about how compassion, self-compassion, has two elements, the yin and yang, just like everything, And so she was talking about how in our journey of being compassionate towards ourselves, we need to bring those two yin and yangs together. The self-compassion, the yin version, or the more like feminine energy version of it, is to love yourself exactly as you are, just like a very unconditionally loving mother would love a child just as that child is. Now, the archetypical masculine energy, or the yang energy, would want to help that child improve and become better and better and better. And the example that I can think of is, like, let's say a dad wants to help a child become better at piano, and the child themselves or the dad himself is great at playing the piano, and the child wants to become better, but they are not good. I mean, obviously nobody's good at the beginning of any new venture. So the dad's yang kind of form of self-compassion would be to spend time patiently with that child and help them get better at that skill, and help them practice, help them learn. And through that self-improvement, the confidence of that child increases. So the mother gave, the divine feminine version, or the polarity that represents the feminine energy, gave the child unconditional love. You're worthy just as you are. The father gave the self-improvement aspect of, let's get even better. Let's improve your skills. Let's help you become even more competent, which leads to the child being even more, confident. And so it's that balance that it really completes us and makes us whole. And that's what I wanted to bring in with this question. Self-improvement combined with that yin self-compassion. I'm worthy and good just as I am. And of course, I can improve and become better every day. So that self-improvement, just don't let it become a denial of who you are as you are in this moment. Practice and embrace both polarities of self-compassion. So the fifth questions for type 1s to ask themselves: do you recognize and process your anger? So what I mean by that is, do you do things like yoga? Do you do things like qigong or meditation? Because anger is, the passion of type 1s. If you want to learn more about the vices and the virtues of each type, or the passions and virtue of each type, please check out my video by the same name. I'll link it up there. And it's on my channel. You can find it as well. I'll also put the link to it in the description. But basically, the passion of type 1s is anger, and they are in the anger triad as well. So it's like a double whammy, so to speak. But they tend to repress that anger. So, they tend to just shove it down. So they may feel it. The 9 may not even feel it. Their next door neighbor 9 may just be completely unaware that they even have something called anger within themselves. But the type 1 is aware, however, tends to repress that anger. So finding healthy ways to, acknowledge that anger, ask yourself, do I have anger within me right now? Am I actually acknowledging that, or am I just like repressing it? Another video on my channel that I highly recommend you guys check out is How to Handle Emotions, and it's explaining the letting go technique by Dr. David R. Hawkins. And I'll link that up there as well, also in the descriptions. That's my most popular video on my channel so far, and I really think it's because that technique is so helpful in helping us process our emotions, especially anger, but any other emotion as well. And the goal of this question is to just bring awareness to that anger that may be already present within yourselves, and learn how to channel it, express it, release it in the right ways. The letting go technique is a phenomenal way, but things such as yoga, meditation, qigong, which is something I practice and I find that phenomenal. It's like Tai Chi. And those things will really help you find good outlets for that anger and not repress it, because all that repression over time will definitely lead to sickness, because the body will find an outlet for it, and it might not always be the best outlet, based on what we will want. So it's just, just something to be mindful. So hopefully these questions for you as a one were helpful, and hopefully they serve to bring you more self-awareness on your, in your day-to-day life. So 5 questions for type 8s to ask themselves. Are your defiant reactions and attempts to control others actually creating more dangers for you and making you less safe? A lot of these first points, these first questions that I mentioned for each type, the whole gist of it is I'm looking at the basic fear and I'm looking at the basic desire, which in this case, the basic fear for type 8 is of being harmed or controlled by others. The basic desire is to protect themselves. This is based on Don Risso and Russ Hudson's work, okay? So the whole idea is that we have these basic desires and fears, but the way that our personality goes about getting those desires met and overcoming those basic fears is so counterproductive. So what is the 8's way is that they're super powerful and dominant, and tend to, especially at lower levels of health, want to control others, right? And the whole point of this question is that are your defiant reactions and attempts to control others actually creating more dangers for you and making you less safe? The whole point of this question is to bring attention to our natural and normal habitual programmed responses and reactions, and see if those habitual reactions actually bringing the fruits that you're after, actually bringing the results that you're after, which is, to protect yourself, to avoid being harmed or controlled by others. Realize that your natural way of going about things, attempts to control others, actually may be creating more dangers for you and making you less safe. Yes, the way this does this is because if you're controlling others sometimes, all the time, you may now lack trust. And trust is such a big component of feeling safe. And a lot of times if you're attempting to overly control someone, that inherently defines and means that you don't trust them. And so feeling like you can't trust your surroundings, you can't trust the people around you, that's going to constantly make you be on alert and on have your nervous system be activated at all times and not make you fulfill your basic desires. So that's the first question. Second question, are you avoiding looking at deep hurt and grief and are avoiding or acting it out instead? I have a video on my channel. It's called How to Handle Emotions. I've talked about it in a lot of these segments for different types. That video is linked in the descriptions and basically teaches this technique called the letting go technique. And this letting go technique is just a technique that helps us how to handle our emotions, how to deal with them, how to address them. And a lot of times what you realize with the letting go technique is basically the whole technique is you allow an emotion to be, you're aware of it, you're not projecting it, you're not suppressing it, you're not escaping it, you're not expressing it, you're just feeling it. And oftentimes what you may end up feeling is let's say you're feeling a lot of anger, you sit with that anger, and then you realize underneath that anger was actually sadness. So now you have to work with the sadness and let that go. For type 8s, because they're so concerned, in a sense, with looking powerful, putting on a powerful exterior, they tend to avoid deep hurt and grief and tend to act it out instead. What that ends up doing, though, for type 8s is that, again, they won't like feel safe because they're reacting, in a sense, from trauma. Another good book is called How to Do the Work by the holistic psychologist, or Dr. Nicole LePera. It just recently came out, and she talks about trauma responses, really working with that. And ultimately, if you want to feel safe and you're always acting out of your trauma, well, you're creating more situations that are gonna cause you more trauma and bring you more pain. And if you want to protect yourself, then addressing that grief, facing that hurt, will actually be a very effective strategy, because then you won't be acting out of that wound. And in the long term, it will save you more pain, even though in the short term it may hurt. But ultimately, another thing it's going to do is that it's going to help you cultivate more real relationships with others, which, having those real relationships, having those people that you can fully trust, is going to make you feel more safe, and ultimately get you to a point where you don't feel like you have to protect yourself all the time. So another thing, though, I wanted to mention is that there's a book or audio program by Brene Brown called Power of Vulnerability. Or maybe, yeah, it's Power of Vulnerability. I thought it's The Gift of Vulnerability, but that's her other book called The Gifts of Imperfection. But Power of Vulnerability is, I feel like, it's such a phenomenal program for any of us, but really type 8s, type 1s, type 3s, those types that really struggle with being vulnerable. Tapping into that vulnerability, what is the path of integration for type 8s? It's going to type 2. It's going towards the path of the heart. It's expressing the love that they have. Well, you can't express love. You can't fully give if you're not vulnerable. And the power of vulnerability will help you tap into that vulnerability and ultimately live a more full, enriched life. So that is the question number 2. Question number 3. Are you opening up to those who really love you and talk to them about the things that are eating at you? Again, I said here, intimacy requires vulnerability. So the 8s really are just so, when they really love someone, they express that so passionately. There's so much energy to it. And again, the path of their integration is that 2 energy, is that I want to give love to the world, to people whom I love. I just want to really be there for them, care for them. They want you. They crave that. If you're an 8, you crave that most likely, and realize that there are people around you who really do love you, and you being able to open up to them and express those vulnerable feelings and express to them what's been weighing on you, what's been weighing you down, what's been your struggle. That's going to help you cultivate more real relationships, more fulfilling relationships, more honest, truthful, authentic relationships that are going to be a lot more enriching and fulfilling, and ultimately, again, make you feel safe. But all of that requires vulnerability. But the whole point of this question is, look at the people who are around you, your loved ones, and see if you've been not allowing them to see the real you, the vulnerable you. And just realize that there are gifts in that. If you are vulnerable, you will gain those gifts. It just would be better for everyone involved. Nobody wants to be in a relationship with someone that can't ever honestly express themselves, because a real relationship is built on honest communication. And as long as you're not vulnerable, you're not having honest communication. So that's the whole point of that question. Now, question number 4. Are you working yourself to death? Wouldn't some quiet time and rest actually make you more helpful? So the whole point of this question is that type 8s have so much energy. They're trying to get so much done. They're trying to create so much. They're trying to give so much. But they have a tendency to go over and beyond and be excessive, right? The whole passion of lust, another word for that is excess. They just accept. There's too excessive with their energy. They have so much energy, and it's just it's going 100 miles an hour all the time. Ultimately, You know how, yeah, have you seen like those cars, or like, I don't even know if you can call them cars, but like race cars that are like a little capsule, and they go like 1,000 miles an hour, but they only can go that hard and that fast for, I don't know, like a minute or 2 minutes, because that going that much, going with that much pressure and force, that requires so much energy, and ultimately you will burn out. And that's kind of like what ends up happening to eights, is that they burn out. And so if you are wanting to make a full contribution to the world, if you are wanting to give, if you are wanting to create, if you do want to accomplish, asking yourself, okay, am I like going too hard? Wouldn't I benefit from some rest and quiet time, and some meditation? And for an eight, eight will probably be like the least likely type to want to meditate, but it's the type that will tremendously benefit from it. And I'm not just saying meditation, but just having that rest, because it's the yin and yang, right? If it was daytime all the time, we would all burn. The whole balance of nighttime and daytime is what allows us to have a life. And the whole balance of GST, get shit done, and rest is what allows us to have a full life. The type A's just do the GST. They don't do the rest. Now, their neighbors may do, type 9s may overdo the rest and just not have this let's get stuff done kind of attitude. But balancing it out will tremendously help them, and bringing rest into their life will actually make the eights, make you, if you're an eight, more effective and more powerful. All right, next question, or last question. Do you expect people to not like you? Can you see how that actually may be creating a self-fulfilling prophecy? So type 8s, because of just like the amount of intensity and energy that they bring into the world, they may have accustomed to people not liking them. It's just too much for people sometimes, right? It's like they're too hardcore, too like serious. Not serious necessarily, but like they're just too like they're like, it's just so much. I don't know how to explain it, but it's just too much sometimes for people, right? So they've gotten accustomed to people not liking them, not liking their approach. But oftentimes they now go into situations just imagining and like expecting people to not like them. And if you've never heard the concept of self-fulfilling prophecy, that's exactly what this situation is creating. It's creating self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like when you believe something, when you expect something, and then you act in a way that actually creates that, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. I expect this is gonna happen. This is gonna happen. I then unconsciously or subconsciously act in ways that does make that happen, and then I'm like, oh wow, like see, this does happen. So that's just something that for the eights, it may be a common experience. So that is just a very simple question to ask yourself, and see if you do expect that from people to not like you. And I believe that will be very helpful if you do bring attention to that. So hopefully this video was helpful for you. If it was, please let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. And thank you for watching the segment. On to the next and the last type, my personal type, type 9s. All right, 5 questions for type 9s to ask themselves. This is, I could say, rooted in personal experience more so than any other type, because I am a type 9, and I can 100% say that these questions will be helpful, and I personally would benefit from asking myself these more. And this first one, I 100% ask myself a lot more than I did prior to getting introduced to Enneagram. So now, this is a question, the first one. What difficulty / conflict / uncomfortable reality have you been avoiding, and what has that avoidance cost you? I'm going to read that again. What difficulty / conflict / uncomfortable reality have you been avoiding, and what has that avoidance cost you? So I said this in type 7's section, but that is the question that was the whole genesis of this whole, this whole video, this whole series. I just one day had this idea that like, oh my God, if I just ask myself more often, um, like what difficulty, what challenge, what conflict am I avoiding that I need to face? That, it's going to cause me more pain to not face it. It's going to cause a bigger conflict if I don't face it. What challenge am I facing? And it would benefit me if I do face it. And I realize, like, when I do ask that consistently, it does make me face certain things that would be very uncomfortable and I most often don't want to do. Um, like, I mean, I'll make an example. Like, uh, I found this may be a little bit gross, but like, I found some mold in our closet, and the whole idea of like having to pull everything out and then like spray that, the wall with cleaning products, wipe it down, all that stuff. It just felt like something that as a 9, I was like, do I really want to do this on my Saturday? Like, do I really want to face this uncomfortable situation? But I knew that avoiding it is going to cause me bigger pain, which is like that mold getting even bigger of a problem, and also just me knowing that that's there, and like I'm just like every time I have to like deny that that's okay, that's fine, just no worries. I just knew I just gotta face it. Now I'm lucky that I am in a relationship with a type 8. And my girlfriend is like, let's like there's a problem, let's face it. Like that's like how like type 8s would approach it. Now the higher version of that is like, it's the type 8s may be just facing everything. And there's like not like the 9 balances that out. Like no, you don't need to address, you don't need to deal with this. Like just let it be, it's fine. But there are certain times that like you do need to face, right? You have to just do it now. So, with a little extra push and with my own realization and learnings from the Enneagram, I was like, this has to be done now. So we got it done. It's clean. I mean, I'm not gonna take the camera and show you guys, but just trust me on this. All right. So that's the first question. What difficulty / conflict / uncomfortable reality have you been avoiding, and what has that avoidance cost you? I'll say one more thing related to this is that if you look at the path of disintegration for type 9s, in times of stress, they go to type 6. What is type 6? Oh my God, like it's like looking for problems, right? Well, the way you integrate that point is by asking the questions that you would ask yourself if you had already fallen down to that level, right? Like I realized that when I'm super stressed out, I start asking these type 6 questions like, oh my God, like what have I been avoiding? What problems are there? What do I need to face? What do I need to address? But I was like, dude, like just ask yourself before you have like life gives you no other options but to do it. Like it would save you a lot more pain and would actually fulfill your basic desire of like wanting to have peace and harmony in your life if you do face those things before they turn into a gigantic monster that now you like have to deal with. So it's just a helpful question. I think honestly for all of us, but for sure for type 9s and 7s. All right, question number 2 for type 9s to ask themselves. Are you humble or false humble? Or I guess falsely humble? Are you thinking you're nobody is special? All right, I'm gonna read this quote from C.S. Lewis. I think it's awesome. He says, "True humility is not thinking less of yourself; it's thinking of yourself less." I mean, how fire is that? True humility is not thinking less of yourself; it's thinking of yourself less. I mean, that just like never not slap. It's fire. But basically, the whole point is, I had to ask myself this too, is because, obviously, like, as a 9, I realized that, like, okay, how do I want to phrase this? False humility is when you don't think you're anybody special. It's almost like you think you're kind of like worthless, like you don't matter. Type 9s, they're one good affirmation for them is to say, I matter, I matter, I matter. Because you do, okay? You have to believe that. But the type 9 personality type, the lie there is that they think they're nobody special. Like they don't matter. Their purpose doesn't matter. Their gifts doesn't matter. It's like what their want doesn't matter. Their preferences don't matter. What other people want matters. That's like the whole kind of trap there, or like the whole game. so to speak there. But basically, my point with that question was like, are you humble or false humble? The false humble is like, are you not like truly looking at like, dude, dude, woman, lady, you are a powerful person. You are a creation of a divine being. You are a child of God. You are worthy. You matter. And you need to acknowledge that. So like falsely humble, being like, I don't matter. I'm nobody special. Like that's not humility. That's like being disrespectful to your creation, like to who you are created as, to the fact that you are here. Like that is a gift. You are a gift. And you have gifts within you that you are here to give. And you have to believe that. And so that's what I had to like really tap into and like realize there's a distinction between humility and false humility. Humility is when you acknowledge your power. You have believed that you matter. But you, just like this quote says, you're not thinking less of yourself. You're just thinking less. You're not thinking less of yourself. You're thinking of yourself less. Okay? That is true humility. It's like, okay, I'm not just focused on others because I feel like I don't matter. I'm nobody special. No, I know I'm special. I know I matter. I know I'm unique. I've acknowledged my value, my worth. And now, from that place of wholeness and power, I will seek to be truly helpful to others. But and give and be humble and like express that. But it's not, oh, I'm just this worthless nobody person. Like, no, like what? Like you're a child of God. I mean, that's what I had to tell myself. It's like, dude, like you are worthy. Like you are a divine, like God created you. He extended himself as you. Like you matter. And these things just like really were impactful for me. So I hope that they will bring the same, results for you in your life. But okay, let's just move on to the third question. Are you saying yes when you mean no? Do you feel like you have the option to say no? Okay, so I have made a video on my channel. It's called my journey with boundaries. I'll link it in the description. But basically, boundaries is something I spoke in the section for type 2. Boundaries is like our limit, basically. And it's a concept I was 100% unfamiliar with until just this past 2 years or a year and a half. And it just like shifted my life in so many ways. And it was a game changer. Another book that talks about it is the new book by holistic psychologist called How to Do the Work. Her name is also Dr. Nicole LePera. But basically, boundaries and the book Boundaries by Dr. Townsend and Dr. Cloud, these resources were really helpful for me in learning how to set boundaries, say no. And I realized that and this is something that the book Boundaries says, and I mentioned in my type 2 video, it was like a game changer for me to realize this. Until you have the ability to say no, none of your yeses are true yeses. Because if a true yes is when you had the option to say no, but you decided to say yes. The type 9s, it doesn't even register that we have the option to say no sometimes. It's like, I could have said no to that person's request. Like that just like an earth-shattering, mind-blowing concept for them. Realizing that you can say no and realizing that you tend to say yes when you mean no, and then be kind of like passive aggressive or like not get what you need to get done, the thing that you said yes to, not do it, forget it, all those things that type 9s may end up doing when they don't want to do something but they've said yes to it. Like, just realize that all of those problems can have been avoided if you just said no in the first place. And yeah, it's just a game changer, learning the ability to say no for type 9. So I'll just leave that at that. The whole point is, my friends, learn to say no, because the whole world, I mean, your life will be better, but the whole world will benefit too, because ain't nobody want to push along a 9 that just does not want to move. It's heavy, it's hard. And we are good at not moving when we don't want to. So just realize when you just say no, all that will be solved. All right. Number 4, this is a life changer. This changed my life. This personally just like absolutely 100% changed my life. Do you know what you want? Now, that may be a very simple question, but trust me, deeply understanding what you want in life. I mean, like you can start small. Like, what do you want right now? Like, what do you want the room temperature to be? Is it cold right now? Do you want it to be warmer, or like, or are you too hot? Do you want, to open the door, let some fresh air come in, turn on a fan, like whatever it is. Getting clear about what you want as a 9 will be the turning point of your life. I mean, I guarantee it, because so often we're so out of touch with our purpose, with what we want out of life, our preferences, our desires, and we just have believed that like my desires don't matter, my dreams don't matter, my preferences don't matter. Let me just go along with what other people want. I don't matter. That's the whole like gist of it. Well, guess what? You do matter. And that whole nonsense BS that you've believed, you just gotta uninstall that. Like literally shift delete that. Just don't even put it in the trash can. Just permanently delete it instantly. You don't need that nonsense. You're here to give a gift to this world. You have to believe that first. Nobody will see your gifts until you believe that they are there. Then once you believe it, ask yourself, what do you want? What is your mission in this life? Like you are this unique being. There's nobody else like you. You are a snowflake, okay? Like you literally are one of a kind. And as a result of being a one of a kind, you have a one of a kind gift to give to this world to complete the puzzle piece of this world. You are a piece of the puzzle, but even if one piece of the puzzle is missing, the puzzle is not complete. And you are that puzzle piece, and you just have to believe that and discover what piece you want to be, what contribution. In a sense, you discover what you want to be, but in a sense, that was already also a mission that was given you prior to you even coming here. Like it's almost like you were born with that mission. Now your job is to remember what that mission was and accomplish it, and realize that your uniqueness is a gift to this world. And as long as you say, I'm nobody special, I don't matter, da da da, like that's just a bunch of BS you fed yourself. Just uninstall that and believe in who you are, and believe that you matter, and believe that you're here to make a contribution, and figure out what you want, and what you want to do and what you want to accomplish. And just by asking the simple question of like, what do you want? What do I want in that case, right? What do I want? I have to do that with myself consistently, like for sure on a 3-month basis, right? Like every 3 months, it's like, okay, in what area have I said like yes to other people, have gone along with what they want, and have kind of like subtracted myself from the equation? What do I want? What do I want in this situation? What do I want with this? What do I want with that? That will change your life. So I'm just, guess what? I'm going to make a whole video on that. I was about to say, I can make a whole video on that, but guess what? I'm going to make a whole video on that. So y'all just stay tuned. It's going to be a game changer. That question will change your life. That probably should have been the last question, because that would have been fire. But anyways, number 5, last question for type 9s to ask themselves. Are you investing time and energy into developing yourself and your skills? Type 9s tend to undercount themselves, right? It's like they're like, going back to like the whole nobody special kind of attitude. It's like, I'm nobody special. They tend to not believe in their own talents, their own gifts, their own qualities, their gifts really to give to the world. And they tend to not put time and effort into developing their talents, cultivating their gifts, and bringing the fruits of that into the world. So the path of integration for type 9s, if you have studied the Enneagram, you'll know that it's going to type 3. It's basically integrating certain qualities of type 3s, healthy type 3s, and bringing those into your own life, into your own being. And what are those qualities? It's that type 3s do invest time in their own development. They do invest time into improving their talents, becoming more competent, really cultivating those skills so that they can like use those for their own good, for others' good, making the world a better place. And what that all starts with is you believing that you matter, and then you believing that you cultivating your talents matters, and then putting the effort into actually improving your skills, becoming more competent, and then bringing those gifts into the world. So like, I know I've personally gotten so much joy out of that, when I was like, you know what? Yeah, I can do video. Yeah, I can do this. And I decided to like learn this, all this stuff. And I was like, I can have a YouTube channel, and I can share what I learned with people, which is something I wanted to do for a long time. But for a long time, I didn't believe that I can do it. Finally, when I believed, finally, when I decided to spend the time and put in the effort and learn and apply myself and realize that I matter and what I'm here to contribute matters, that's when things start shifting for me. And so if you are watching this video, that's completely a result of that whole equation. I decided to believe in myself. I decided to believe that I matter, the contribution that I'm here to make matters, and that I can put in the time and energy to cultivate my gifts, and then I can take action and create and take initiative and bring about what I want to see in the world. And you can do too, and so can all of us, because we all are created in the image of a creator. Therefore, by extension, we are creators. And I hope that with these simple questions, we return to the remembrance of who we truly are. So thank you for watching this whole series. Again, my name is PJ, and it was truly a joy to bring this series into the world and out for you guys to watch it. If it was helpful for you in any way, please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear from you. And if there are other questions that you have found to be helpful for you, please let me know also. If you enjoyed the content, please subscribe to my channel if you feel called to. I put out videos on the Enneagram and other topics that all fall under the umbrella of finding and becoming more in touch with who you truly are, deep down, your essence, and bringing that and expressing that out more and more into the world through the unique self that you are. And so if you want to see more videos like that and about that stuff, please subscribe. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. That really helps me out in understanding what resonates with my audience, what topics they want to hear more about. And again, I'm just super grateful that you gave me your time and spend this time with me. Super last quick thing, but super important thing. I am working on a course that is actually called Moving into Higher Levels of Consciousness based on the Enneagram, or with the help of the Enneagram. And it's based on a video that I made that for some reason it got a lot of views. I didn't think it will, but it's basically the same name, How to Move into Higher Levels of Consciousness with the Enneagram. And if you want to learn more about what that whole concept even means, check out that video. I'll link it up there. The link is also in the description. But I'm working on a course that goes in depth into each of the types and talks about how each type can really help with the Enneagram, with the help of the Enneagram, evolve and raise their consciousness. So if you're interested in that course, my first release will be to the people in my newsletter. There's a link in the description. It says sendfox.com or something like that. But basically I have a header. It says, sign up in the newsletter by clicking this link. That link will, if you sign up to my newsletter through that link, you will be the first recipient of my, course when it gets offered and released, and you will also be able to receive discounts on it. So if you're interested at all in that, if you, like Enneagram and want to see how you can use it to improve and raise your consciousness, then please consider subscribing to my email list, and you will be the first to hear when the course drops. So again, thank you. My name is PJ. Thank you guys for watching this video, and hopefully it was truly helpful for you. And with that, I wish you all the best, and I hope to see you in the next video.